Okay, we're going to begin a new sugya on Chaf Amid Beis. Chaf Amid Beis. This is sugya of Zev Zeh Goyrim. The concept of Zev Zeh Goyrim is something can only be accomplished with two factors. If one of the factors is mutta and one of the factors is asa, what's the halacha? Do we say it's asa or do we say it's mutta? That's going to be the prevalent svara of the discussion today. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, we're on Chaf Amid Beis, about a little past the halfway point, and the Mishnah said, "La yosik ber tanur." Something's asa b'hana, you can't go ahead and ignite an oven with it. Now, Tan Rabbanan, Tana shehisiku beklipe arla, by bekoshin shel klei keren. So klipe arla and bekoshin shel klei keren, they're both yisuri hana, and they're both fuel sources that can be used to fuel an oven. So the oven was heated up. Now there's two types of ovens that is affected by this halacha. One, an oven that had never been used before, and the first igniting the oven is considered its gemar malacha, or as opposed to an oven that has been used before, and this is simply a fuel. So if you went ahead and chadash, the oven that you used first, it was the first time use, right? It's going to be fueled, it's going to be finished with using a surya, then you have to go ahead and break the oven. You have to break the oven because that hesek of arla was mekayim through this din of arla or klei keren. Yashan, if it was a previously used oven that we'll call old yutzan, all you have to do is wait till it cools off, and then you'd be able to go ahead and use it. Let's say it's an oven that you went ahead and you baked bread using klipe arla or kashin shel klei keren. So you use the isurya. Rabbi Yomi Pesachim v'chacham mayrim habas muteres. Says Rashi, important Rashi fellas. Alpha by a pas, first thin semi-wide line. Alpha by pas, behesig zeh, and lekaman mukila. Later on, will establish it speaking kishavuka kinegdai, with the avuka, with the torch, the fire of the klipe arla is kineged of bread. Shekol shosha hoisa pas betaner. The whole time that the pas was in the oven, the or was lit, and it was baking it. It was nene from the issa at the time the issa was still around. Every time you have klipe arla or shibole or kashin shel klei keren, there's two things. There is one where you light it and it's still around and it's hot, and two, if it's consumed and you still have the heat remaining. So it seems to be, if it's not around anymore, it's the heat remaining, then everyone's maida that it's mutta. The shaila is when you're baking it, when it's still around, you have that piece be'en, that piece of shtick bark of arla, and connected it, you have the pas. Says Rabbi, it's aser, and says the chachamim, it's mutta. Says Rabbi, it's aser, and says the chachamim, it's mutta. Okay? Now, why does Rabbi say it's aser?
Didn't the chachamim, according to the chachamim, though, didn't you have hana from the arla though? Let's
see. Rabbi Yomer hapasa surah the yeshvach atse isur bepas. You have the shvach, you have the enhancement of the atse isur bepas. Since it was opposite, and you're having enough of it. The chacham ma'im hapas muteres heshi savri ein shvach eitzim bepas mamish. There's no shvach eitzim bepas mamish. In the pas itself, you do not have mamish the hana. Who are then the less lunami chadash. They'd also hold that what you don't have to break the oven. Ela Yutzan. Chamin Rishmait says we'll see. So again, the machlokes seems to be whether you hold yesh shvach eitzim bepas or ain't shvach eitzim bepas. Like Rabbi, we say yesh shvach eitzim bepas. In the pas, you have the shvach of the eitz of Lorla. It's asa b'hana. Says the Chachamim, ain't shvach eitzim bepas. We do not say the praise of the eitzims in the past, the advancement, the enhancement of the eitzims in the past, and therefore it is mutter. Okay. Now, what happens if you go ahead and bishla gabi gacholim? You went ahead and they became charcoal. It became charcoal, and now it's be'en. So dibri akol, even Rabbi will admit that mutta, it would be permitted, simply because, again, it's not be'en. All you have is a charcoal. It's been used up already. So what do you have now? You're all left with the heat. The heat, everyone would say, is mutta. And that would be consistent with what Rashi brought, that Rabbi's sheet is only kasheyesh avuka be'en, when it's mamish opposite it. By the gacholim, where it's not around anymore, only the heat is around, even Rabbi would hold it's mutta. Now, Fred the Gemara Kasha, you just told me that if it's a new oven, you break it. Ivatanya, Ben Chodesh, Ben Yosha, and Yutzan, you just let it cool off. So you see an oven that is cooled off, is you just cool it off. You don't have to go ahead and break it. It says more like Kasha, you have it stira, like Kasha. Rebbe. The one that said you have to break the oven is Rebbe. So Rabbanon, and the one that said that is Mutta, that you don't have to break the oven is the Rabbanon. Okay. Now, aim of the Shamalei Loret. Now, what's the reason, fellas? Let's speak this out. What's the reason that the oven would be Mutta or Rasa? I have my oven. I finished the oven using the eitzim of Arla. So for all intents and purpose, I have an Asr Dika oven. It's an Asr Dika oven. The oven is a Shtik Arla, right? Now, the next time I want to bake bread, what am I going to do? I'm going to take Kasha eitzim. I'm going to take eitzim that are fully fledged, no problem whatsoever. I'm going to light the oven, heat up the oven with it, and I'm going to bake bread. So what causes the bread now? Two things. One, an oven that's not good, and two, eitzim that are good. So this is a case of zeh v'zeh goyrim, what we spoke out in the introduction. Zeh, the oven that's asa, v'zeh, the eitzim that are muta, goyrim, they cause the new pas, they cause the bread to be fine. So Rebbe must hold, guys, zeh v'zeh goyrim is asa. Says the Gemara. Fred the Gemara Kasha. Aim of the Shamalei Rebbe. When does Rebbe say the bread is asa? Is the yeshvach eitzim b'pas, where you're baking bread. It's opposite the eitzim. It's going directly from the eitzim into the pas. So it's not zev v'zeh goyim, guys. It's one grama. The bread, the eitzim that's be'en going into the pas, right? It's only one goyim. How zev v'zeh goyim mishamalei? Does he hold zev v'zeh goyim? Does he hold that it would be aser? Guys, you hear why it's Zeh v'Zeh Goyim here? Fellas, you see? Zeh, again, we're speaking about the next batch. You had an oven the oven was finished using Arla. So the oven, tak is a treifa oven. It's an Isuhana oven. You go ahead and you take brand new, fresh, kosher digga wood, and you put it in, and you heat it up, and you bake bread. So I have two things causing the bread. One, the oven, and two, what? And two, the eitzim. So you're going to tell me Zev v'zeh goyim seems to be asa. That doesn't seem to be the prevalent shita, as we're going to see. It's the das of Yochid. It's the das of Rebbe Eliezer. Now, I saw a beautiful run, guys. Listen to this. Why would the svara be Zev v'zeh goyim be asa? Why would it be muta? Because we say the concept of bittel. We say that the heter is mevatel the isser. Now the obvious question is, bittel is usually in majority. You need 2 versus 1. Says the Ran, when is that? When you have an isser be'en. Over here, it's isurei hana. It's not be'en, and therefore it's enough 1 versus 1. That would be the svara to say why Zev v'zeh goyim is muta, right? Very good. So now we have a kasha. Guys, let's go over it. Let's one more time reiterate. We have one brisa that says what? That you have to break the oven. We have another brisa that says you don't have to break the oven. And for the Gemara, the brisa that says that you don't have to break the oven, that's the Rabbana. The brisa that says that you have to break the oven is Rebbe. Why do you have to break the oven? Because Zev v'zeh goyim is asa. For the Gemara, when did we? I hear Rebbe says the pas is asa. I never heard Rebbe said that Zev v'zeh goyim would be asa. I never heard that. So Elolei Kasha, Ha Rebbe Eliezer. The price that says you have to break the oven is Rebbe Eliezer, who holds the Zev v'zeh goyim is asa, and Rabbanon. And the price that says just let it cool off, Yutzan, let it cool off would be the Rabbanon. Now we are going to go ahead. The Gemara is going to search now for this opinion of Rebbe Eliezer, where we say Zev v'zeh goyim is asa. Who is this person? It says, "Hi Rebbe Eliezer, Ilem Rebbe Eliezer the Sar." If you're going to tell me it's Rebbe Eliezer of sourdough, if not, Sar shel chulin, you have yeast of chulin, the shel truma, and you have yeast of truma, shenaflo toich isa, that falls into a dough, ve'ein bezek dela hachmitz, and neither one alone is enough to go ahead and leaven the dough, but together they are. Then it starts with the chimtzu, and they go to come together, and they make it what? Leaven. I'll go after the last one. So if the first one was truma, and the latter one that fell in was truma or skulin, I'll say it's skulin. Conversely, if the first one is chulin and the latter is truma, I'll say it's truma. Whether the truma falls in first, or bein shenafal isa the besoif la'ilam ena oiser at sheheboy kadei lachametz. Until what you have enough kadei. Guys, this is a case of zev zegorim. He holds zev zegorim is muta. We don't care which one falls in, since zeh the chametz, meaning the sa'ar. It's not a chametz shayla here. It's a shayla of leaven. Does it have it in a truma or not? Right. So this zev zegorim, both are causing the establishment of 11 pieces of dough. So in this case, the chachamim would say it's muta because zev zegorim is muta. Now, how do you see from after the achroin that Rabbi Eliezer holds zev zegorim is asa? From the following, for Amar Abaya says Abaya, loishanu that we go after the achroin, loishanu we go after the last piece. If he went ahead and took it out, if he went ahead and took out the truma, if he didn't take out the truma, asar. So this that we go after the last one is only upon the removal of the truma. But if you didn't remove the truma, then if they're both present, then it's asar. Guys, so what do you have? The bread is asa, meaning it's truma. Why is it truma? Zeh, truma, vizeh, and chulin, asa. Zev zegorim is asa. Alma, we see zev zegorim is asa. We see zev zegorim is asa. So the chayra, very good. The brisa before we had a machlokes. The oven has to be broken. The oven doesn't have to be broken. The one that says it doesn't have to be broken is the Rabbanon who holds zev zegorim is muta. The one that says it has to be broken is Rabbi Eliezer who says zev zegorim is asa. Where do we see Rabbi Eliezer holds zev zegorim is asa? Because the case of sa'ar, of truma and sa'ar of chulin falling in together, and according to Abaya, says the Gemara, "My time of Rabbi Eliezer Abaya." How do you know Rabbi Eliezer is like Abaya? Dilma time of Rabbi Eliezer mishum da acha achron ani ba. Loishna kodem b'silik asa, loishna lo kodem b'silik asa. Alav basacha sachanami d'shari. You can't say at the same time. It would be muta because zev zegorim is muta. This explanation that we just gave to establish that zev zegorim asa is predicated upon Abaya's interpretation of the machlokes. If you buy into Abaya's interpretation, you have a raya. If you don't, you have no raya. What did Abaya say? Abaya said the following. Again, Rabbi Eliezer said one statement, guys. What did he say? He said, if the first thing that falls in is truma and the second thing that falls in is chulin, it's chulin, and vice versa. And you always go after the last one. This has nothing to do with zev zegorim. It has to do with what came last. In other words, what completed the job, right? Ein dav boy nikra el al shem soifoi, right? Who buried Atzmas Yosef? Bnei Yisrael. It's like they took him out of Mitzrayim, right? Ein dav nikra el al shem soifoi. That's it. So what's the soifoi over here? Whatever the soifoi is, if it's chulin, it's chulin, it's truma, it's truma. Good. Says Abaya. 1 second, no. Abaya, we only say that if you didn't remove the issa. But if you removed it, if you didn't remove the issa, but if you did remove the issa, but if you didn't remove the issa, then we say asa. Zev zegorim is asa, right? I could just as easily say it has nothing to do with zev zegorim. It has to do with what came last. Nothing to do with Abaya. Ken Zayin Rabbi Eliezer holds if they both fell in at the same time, there was no achron, he'd hold the whole thing as mutta. Why? Because zev zegorim is mutta. So I have no raya that Rabbi Eliezer holds zev zegorim is usher unless I hold like Abaya. I don't have to hold like Abaya. That's the Gemara. So you have not established that Rabbi Eliezer holds zev zegorim is usher. To be continued. One more time. Let's go. Says the Gemara. Ella will give you another example of zev zegorim. Says the Gemara. Let's find it. Alma zev zegorim usher. Umay the time Rabbi Eliezer 4 lines down. Umay the time Rabbi Eliezer kebaya. Dilma time Rabbi Eliezer mishum da achron ani ba. Loishna kodem b'silik it doesn't make a difference if you remove the truma. Loishna loy kodem b'silik if you didn't remove the truma. Alav basachas But at the same time, Achanami Kishari can sign Zev Zegoyim will be muta. Ella Lashon Charata, Rebbe Eliezer de Atzei Asherah. It's Rebbe Eliezer of Atzei Asherah. Now we all know when Asherah is Asabah, no, none. Not limenu aitzim. You cut off the branches of the Asherah. You take the wood. Asurim b'hana, the Asabah. Hesek b'nesatana. You fueled up an oven using the Atzei Asherah. Same case as Orla. Just go ahead and substitute Atzei Asherah. Chodosh yutatz. Chodosh you got to break down because now this oven is a shtik avodah zarah. In other words, it was Gemara was avodah zarah. Yoshan, a previously used oven, Yutzan, just wait till it cools off. Alpha bayas pas asurim bahana. If you bake bread in it, it's asa bahana. Nisarva b'acheros. If it gets mixed in, the wood gets mixed with others. Acheros b'acheros kul and asuris bahana. They're all asa bahana. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, you're the chanol yamamelach. Go ahead and take the me'etzim, throw in the yamamelach. Be poid it. Omeloy ain't poid ma'avodah zarah. Now, and it can be poid avodah zarah. Okay, so now he says you have to break the oven, right? He says you have to break the oven over here. Let's see Rashi over here. Yolich de me'etzim liyamamelach. The me'etzim we call machem shaminulei, but nonetheless. Shaminulei that kol kamadloi mati hano liyamamelech is long, is the hana, does not get into the yamamelech. Moidu hudul tanakama, beina chodesh yutats, whether it's new, you got to break it. Beina yoshan yutzan, beina isser pas, alma, whether on the oven or the pas. Alma, kivin diktani chodesh yutats, isleh zev is a goyim masa. Since it says you have to break the oven, what's the reason you have to break the oven, guys? It must be because you can't use it. That's fair rice, guys. That's fair rice. Look at me. That's fair rice. You have an oven. You took Ashi Asherah. The oven was never used before. You went ahead. You took wood Ashi Asherah. You used it in the oven. The oven now is complete, meaning it was completed through Ashi Asherah. The next time it says you have to break it. You have to break it. Why do I have to break it? Because I can never use it. Let's go through. Let's fair rice. Next time, I'm going to take kosher wood, put it in the oven, bake bread. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't allow that. That's zev goyim. Zeh the oven, which is asa, the wood, which is muta. I won't allow that. I'll let you break the oven. So forget about whether you can be played the me'etzim or not. That's a zayt halacha. Until you do that, it's asa. It's asa, right? Why is it asa? Because zev goyim is asa. You can't use the oven. So l'chayri, you have a raya to that shita. Now we can go back to the machlokes, the previous steer we had that we began to share. You have one brisa says you break it. One brisa says you don't break it. The brisa that says you don't break it is the chachamim. Zev goyim is muta. The one that says you do break it is Rebbe Eliezer. Zev goyim asar. And we're establishing from Atzei Asherah that Rebbe Eliezer holds is such a thing that you go ahead and you break. Zev goyim is asar. Fred the Gemara kasha. Fed the Gemara. Whether you say Zev goyim is asa, that's b'avodah zarah the chomer. Isur Rabbi Shari Surim Shebetayra. Excuse me, Bezai the chomer Isura. Stop. Shari Surim Shebetayra mishamalei. By other Isurim the Torah, do you hear him say that? By other Isurim the Torah, do you hear him say that? You don't hear him say that. Shari Surim Shebetayra. You don't hear him say that. In other words, we need by Arla. We don't have by Orla. We have by avodah zarah. So even though we all zev is a goyim by avodah zarah is asa, maybe all zev is a goyim by Orla is muta. You proved a case. I admit. You break by avodah zarah. You break the oven. Why? Because you can't use it. Zev is a goyim. But maybe that's unique to the chumrah of avodah zarah that you break the oven. No riot to Orla that you break the oven. Ella im kain says Ella, im kain, if so, pirish. If zev goyim is only by avodah zarah and not by Orla, aman tarmaya. So who are we going to throw it on? In other words, we don't find any other Tana in Shas, zero, who holds zev goyim by any other issa. So now you found one, right? You found Rebbe Eliezer by avodah zarah, and what do you want to do? And say, no, there's a chilik between avodah zarah and Orla. But we obviously have someone who holds by Orla. That it is asa. That's the one who says if you fuel the new oven by Orla, you break the oven. So obviously there's someone who holds that way. And if it's not Rebbe Eliezer, who else is it? So good, you found Avodah Zarah is Muchumra. Nonetheless, it makes sense that he's the Tana, because we have no one else. We have no one else. But yeah, we have a Tana who says by Orla you do break it. There is a Tana who holds Zev Zegoyrim. Must be him. For Oid, another reason. Very nice reason, guys. Hatanya behedya. Not only by Avodah Zarah, but all these Surim by Matari holds Zev Zegoyrim Zasa. So now you have him stating it explicitly. So very geschmack. So going back, the stira that we asked earlier in the Brises, one says you break the oven, one says you don't. The one that you don't break it is the Tanakama, the Chachamim, Zev Zegorim is Muta. The one that says Zev Zegorim, you do break the oven, is Rabbi Eliezer, Zev Zegorim is us. Rabbi, Im Tim Tzaloima Zev Zegorim Asa, Rabbi Hein Rabbi Eliezer. If you say that Im Tim Tzaloima, that Zev Zegorim is Asa, Rabbi who asked the pass, again, we began to share, if you heat it, if you bake the bread, the pass is Asa. So Rabbi holds Zev Zegorim is Asa. Im Tim Tzaloima Zev Zegorim is Muta. Now, if the Zev Zegorim is Muta, so why would Rabbi say it's Asa? Right? There's shvach eitzim bepas. In other words, you have directly going from the fire into the pas. Hani ka'orois, the koisais, the tzluchios, plates and cups and flasks that have been in a kiln that was heated up for the first time with Arla Asiri, they would be Asa. Ki pligi bitana v'kadera. Fellas, take a look at me. Look, guys, look at me. If I go ahead and I heat up a tanner with Arla, so now the tanner is Asa, right? But the use of the tanner requires something else. It requires wood to go ahead and heat it up. It takes two to play. So it's Arla, the oven's Arla, but nonetheless, I need something else for it to be used. I need to heat the sauce. If I go ahead and take a plate and I make the plate from, I'd say, Arla by putting it in the kiln, I don't need any other thing. I'm going to put the food directly on the plate. So it's Asa. Buy a tanner which is not usable unless I do something else afterwards, it's going to be Mutta, Zev. Conversely, by the plate itself, where the oil is in the plate, you're using it directly. There's nothing else. There's no fire. There's nothing. Hani koris v'koisais v'tzluchios asiri debiyasa. Ki pligi when's the machlekes betana v'kedera by a tanner and a kedera on a pot. Manam is zev goyrim asa. Guys, tanner use fire. A pot you use fire. A pot you use fire. Lamandam is zev goyrim muta shari. Since you need two things, right? The pot and the fire. The tanner and the fire, it'd be muta. Ikid Yarmi, a pot's different. I feel Maniam is Zev Zegorim Mutta, even according to Maniam that says Zev Zegorim is Mutta. Again, the fire that's Mutta and the pot that's Asa, Kedera Asura, because you don't need the fire. Why? The Kibla Bishula, Mikamedanit Eitzim Detera. Guys, you began using the pot even before you heated it up. It was containing what? The food. It was containing the food. Since it was containing the food, right, it was Asa. Okay. How are we doing? Okay, let's have a summary. We covered Chaim Leza. Summary of what we did so far. We had the Mishnah had said that you heat up an oven, you can't heat up an oven using chametz. Chametz is asa b'hana. You can't heat up an oven as such. We're going ahead and taking that idea, and we're stating that if you heat up an oven for the first time using Arla, right? There's one opinion it's Mutta, one opinion it's Asa. If it's an old oven that's been used before, then the pass inside would be Asa. Okay, what's the opinion Asa Mutta? By the pass, there's one svara. Achlokas Rebbe and the Chachamim. The pass is only Asa at the time that the Orla is Be'en and the bread is opposite it. So it's mamish being nana from the wood of the Orla. But let's say the wood is consumed, it's now charcoal, and all you have the heat, then everyone would hold Yemutta. That's by Gachalim. What's the machloikis by what? By the tanner. It goes into machloikis of zeh v'zeh goyrim. This and this cause. What does that mean? I went ahead, I took an oven, I finished the oven using Orla. It's now finished. It's been completed, and now it's an Asr oven. The next time I use it, what am I going to do? I'm going to take kosher wood, not Orla wood, regular wood, heat up the oven, and make bread. What caused this bread? Two things. Zeh, the Asr oven, Zeh, the kosher wood, Zeh v'zeh goyrim. If you hold, you have to break the oven. It's because I can't use it. You know why? Because Zeh v'zeh goyrim is Asr, and therefore I won't be able to use it. Conversely, if I hold, you don't have to break the oven. It's called Zeh v'zeh goyrim is mutter, and that answers up to stira. And all we did say is that the Chacham holds Zeh v'zeh goyrim is Asa, is the Tana Rebbe Eliezer. It's the Tana Rebbe Eliezer. Okay, very good. Okay, so now we're holding on Chav Zayin Amid Aleph. Amr Rabbi Yossi, where before the lines get wide, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up. Amr Rabbi Yossi, Amr Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Tana shehisiku beklipe arla. A Tana that you heated up using the klipe arla. This is again exactly what we said before. Just guys, let's go do it outside. Rebbe said the bread is aser, and the Chacham said the bread is mutter, right? That's what we said before. Rebbe said it's asa, and the Chacham said it's mutter. A new oven you break, an old oven you cool down. If you go ahead and bake pas, Rebbe oimer pas muteres. That's the opposite of what he said before. The Chacham oimer and pas asura. That's the opposite of what they said before. The same case, you heated up an oven, or you christened an oven. Excuse me, I shouldn't use that term. You bakleid. I said, you bakleid. I have to. A Yiddish expert. Benji, yeah, bakleid. Okay, you bakleid. Oh, now we have Alpishnayim Eidim, Benji and Kenny. Okay, so now you bakleid. You know what it's like? It's like when you take the bottle of champagne and you hit the ship. So you go ahead, the oven, you're taking the oven, you're taking the fire, and you're heating the oven up. So
the Barclays?
What?
The Barclays Center you're talking about?
The Barclays Center? Anyway, so you have over here, you're doing the same thing, you're using Arla, but we have Machloikis. In the first one, Rabbi said Asa, here he says Mutta, and vice versa. Fred the Gemara Batanya, the Gemara asked the obvious question. You just told me it's the opposite. So it says Shmuel, Ibchatani. Shmuel had the opposite gersa. He had the gersa Rebbe Mutta v'cham masa. He by saying no. Ba'al miksav Shmuel halacha Rebbe mechaveroiv v'lo mechaverov. Shmuel had a rule. If Rebbe argues on one person, the halacha is like Rebbe. If Rebbe argues on two people, the halacha is like the two people. So the two people over here said Mutta, and Rebbe said Asa. But what he wanted is he wanted to go ahead that people should follow the Chachamim. So he made it the opposite. And over here, right, he held that he held Rebbe versus Chaverim. Notice he held it's Taka Asa. I'll learn the opposite. Guys, watch. Look at my hands. Really, the halacha is it's Asa. Really, the halacha is it's Asa. Okay? So what did it say early? It said Rebbe said Asa, and the Chacham said Mutta. He held like Rebbe, but using the rules of Psak, it would have been Mutta like the Chachamim. So in order to make sure that it becomes Asa like Rebbe, he switched it around. Rebbe said Asa, and the Chacham said the opposite. He switched it around, and he said that Rebbe said it's Mutta, and the Chacham said it's Asa, because he wanted it to be Asa. So therefore, that's why he did it. So it's taka consistent. It's just he wanted the halacha to be that way, so he switched it around. Okay, we said previously, if you cook it on the coals, everyone's moida that it's Mutta, because again, when it's on coals already, the orla, it's charcoal. You only getting the heat. It's not the en anymore. Even Rebbe would hold the pasas Mutta. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Chia Bar Ashi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Chadama, Lo Yishanu Ela Gacholim Oinamais. Only if the chacholim are embers, they're going out. If they're flickering. Rashi brings lechash means to whisper. When it flickers, it looks like they're whispering to each other. Very nice, the whispering flames. So, but they're asurim. It'll be asa mishum diyeshvach eitzim bepas, because that would be like keneged avuka. Let's say you went ahead and you took you took a log, guys. The log is burning bright, and you see the flames coming out. The Rebbe holds it's asa. So the flickering embers would be flickering, not embers. Flickering would be the same thing. But the ones that loichashois, that whose souls that what is muta, I pass the asa the yishvach beitzim pass the Rebbe hechim shkachasla. This doesn't seem to be a difference between a log burning, apparently, and embers that are loichashois. So how would you explain Rebbe, if you're going to hold that loichashois the muta? How could you explain Rebbe says that pass is asa? Because you have the be'en. So the Gemara answers, Amrav Papa, Keshavuka kenegdoi, the avuka is exact opposite it. In other words, where it's exact opposite, then it's then. Where it's embers that are loichashois, and it's not exactly opposite, then it's muta, according to Rabbi the Amar. Where, however, the avuka is exactly opposite the bread, then it's also. And that's the Rashi we brought in at the beginning of the share. Now, it's mashma the Rabbanan who say it's muta. They would hold it's muta even if what? Even if it's opposite, it would be muta. Now, why would it be muta? It's not zev. You know, we said that you hold ein shvach eitzim bepas. That was Heshi's question at the beginning. So l'chayr is speaking. You have a torch, mamish a shtick log of arla, and opposite it is bread. Someone's going to say it's muta. Mechal rabbanan pli le'shari afil kishavuka kenegdai. Right? So that's very, very hard to say. So guys, where are you going to have atzei asheru that's asa? If in a case where it's mamish opposite it, or the case of orla, when it's mamish opposite it, where are you going to find the issa? So Ravami Barchama b'shashifa. It doesn't have to be through cooking, fellas. What happens if you make a bench or a footstool using orla? Are you having hana? It'll be asa. In other words, the assumption is the hana you're having is through the vehicle of baking. No, it could be another vehicle. It could be relaxing. You know, it could be on a beach. You have a beach chair made of orla wood or asherah wood. That would be us. Now you use the eitzim that you magdish hegdish to the bedek abayis, and you used it. The offer boy, I don't know, it could be even not the bedek abayis. I don't know why I picked the bedek abayis. It could be even to the mizbeach. The offer boy a pass. The rabbanon the shori b'kamaisa mai. Would there be a din by arlo or not? Pirish. We saw that if you use the wood of arlo like the chachamim, it's permitted. Would they hold the same thing? Hegdish is asa b'hana, arlo is asa b'hana. Just like arla, the bread baked is muta. Do we say hegdish, the bread baked is asa, a muta or not? Amalei. So Rav Chisda answered, Rami bar Chama ha-pas asura. It's asa. So you see a chilik between what? Between arla and hegdish, despite the fact that both asa b'hana, one is worse than the other. Furthermore, am I being zula arla? What's the difference in this and arla? So marava hachi hashta. Arla b'tela b'masayim. Arla we know is batal b'masayim. In the laws of bittul, we know we're familiar with bittul b'shishim. We know that shuma is batal. Shuma is batal b'meya. Shuma is batal b'meya. Arla, guys. Arla is batal in 200. However, hegdish afilu be'elef le batal. Hegdish is afilu be'elef is not batal. So if you're wondering why we were machmir by hegdish rather than arla, it's because hegdish is mochama. How do we see it's mochama? Linyan bittul. Ella amarava ikashale. You want a kasha? I'll give you a kasha. Okay, it's derech hakdama, fellas. We know that there's a din of me'ila by hegdish. We discussed it yesterday, whether there was a din of me'ila by koil or reach or mareh. We said by Reich there could be, by Kolamara not. We spoke out of Chaim Briscoe, who says that it's a din of Gezel. There's no Gezel by Kol. You can't steal a Kol. You can't steal a Maret. But the rule of thumb is, once you moil behegdish, the hegdish goes l'chulin. Once you moil behegdish, the hegdish goes l'chulin. So that's one idea. Once you moil behegdish, the hegdish goes what? It goes b'chulin. Another din is that me'ila is only b'shogeg, not b'mezid. Me'ila is only b'shogeg and not b'mezid. Okay, so we're trying to figure out now a kasha. You want a kasha about using the eitzim what of hegdish? Here's my kasha. You said if you heat up the oven that it's going to be asa, right? Guys, as soon as you use the wood, will you moil behegdish? As soon as you use the wood, did you have enough from hegdish? As soon as you have enough from hegdish, what happens to the wood? Goes l'chulin. So how is this oven finished? So why is the pas asa? Das is a kasha. You want a kasha? Das is a kasha, right? Says the Gemara. But you want a kasha? Here's a kasha. I'll give you a kasha. Amrava, El Amarava, I kasha leha kashle. Here's your kasha. V'aloi moil hamasik. The one who ignites the oven has anah. He's taking the hegdish and bringing it l'chulin. V'chol heichid the moil hamasik nafik l'chulin. So why would the oven be? Why do we have to break the oven, guys? The oven should be a kosher oven. Amra papahacha ba'atze shlam maskinon. We're dealing with wood that you designated for a shlamim. Now, a shlamim does not go as mum and bailim until what? Until after the srika is domim. Right? So here you designated this wood for a shlamim. Rashi says, she'etfisan l'dmei shlamim, l'moichron to sell it, v'lichach b'dmei shlamim to buy with the money shlamim. The kachim kalim ein lehem mila. There's no din of mila by kachim kalim. The lav kachi Hashem karina beit. It's not called kodesh Hashem. Right? We said that, remember the sheet of Yosef Aglili that it's mum and bailim until srikas damin. So says the Gemara, Shlam Maskinon, Valiva de Reb Yehuda, the Amar, Hegdish b'shoigeg mischalel. Hegdish that you have anah b'shoigeg, which is moil, then what? Mischalel, it comes chulin. B'mezid, if you do, ain't a mischalel, right? It doesn't go out l'chulin. B'mezid my time aloi, because kivin de la me'ilahu. Since mezid, you're not a bar me'ilah, because the whole din of me'ilah is stated by a shogeg, so loy nafik l'chulin. Shlamim nami kivin de la bar me'ilah ninu loy nafik l'chulin. We're going ahead and zustelling a concept like this. I have two scenarios where there's no milah. One, when it's kodesh, but I act b'mezid. Two, inherently, when it's kachim kalim, and it's shlamim, that it doesn't have a din of kodesh l'Hashem until later on in the process. So, says Rabbi Yehuda, just as mezid, there's no din of me'ilah, and therefore it doesn't go l'chulin, so too this wood, which was designated to buy a shlamim, despite the fact that it's kodesh, as soon as I use it, it doesn't go l'chulin. Why? Because it doesn't have me'ilah. The whole din of going l'chulin is it's yemoil behegdish, so now you cheapened it, it becomes chulin. Over here, there was no din of me'ilah because it's kach of kalim, and therefore, like Rabbi Yehuda says, that mezid there's no din of me'ilah, it doesn't go out. So to shlamim, but there's no din of me'ilah, it doesn't go out. And therefore, if I use it to go ahead and heat up the oven, I heat it up with at least kach bedek habayis, and therefore you have to break the oven. Fred the Gemara, question. You mean to tell me every time the masik lights it up, it goes l'chulin v'tanya? Let's say it was regular kachim, it would go l'chulin if it wasn't shlomim. V'tanya, kol hanisrafim aforin muta, anything that's burnt, it's ashes muta, chutz mi atzei ashera, and atzei ashera, the efer hegdish, the oilam asa, that oilam derasa. So you're going to take the wood of hegdish. Let's say it's not shlamim, and you want to tell me that if you're going to burn it, that it goes l'chulin. We see over here, even after it's burnt, we see it's still aser, meaning it's not. It doesn't go l'chulin. In other words, we're asking a question on your premise. Your premise is, and your kasha was, once you burn it, gemoil behegdish, it goes to chulin. We see over here by Afer, the ish of what? Of hegdish, that doesn't go to chulin. Amar Rachama, kigoin shenaflu deleka me'alecha, ba'atzei hegdish. Deleka inish denimel. You know, when it's speaking that what? There wasn't any person to make it chulin. If there had been a person that had started the fire, and you started the fire, einachinami the Efer would be mutta. Because as soon as the person started the fire, he's moil behegdish, and it goes to chulin. What happens if the fire broke out by itself? And now you have ash of wood. So there's no milah because there was no one to be moil. In that case, it remains hegdish. That's one shot in the Kol Nisrafim that a foreign shel hegdish is asal oilam. Another shot, Rav Shmaya Omar, ba'oisen shetunim genisa. We're speaking about the special ish, the ish that needs genisa, the ish of what we called yesterday Trumas Hadeshen, because it says v'samay esalam mizbeach. V'samay, it should be there forever. So regular wood taka would go lechulin, but the efa shel oilam of the Trumas Hadeshen is taka asal oilam. The Tanya, v'samay benachas should make the place it. That means benachas, put it down quietly, easily. The samay kuloi, the whole thing, not even part meal. The samay, and you should put it shlei fazer, that it should not go ahead and spread. And we said yesterday the samay that it's asa b'hana. So this efa that's asa b'hana is the true efa of the trumas ha-dashen. Okay, I think we'll leave this for Motzei Shabbos. It's a whole new sugya.
Rabbi, is that way it got swallowed up because it was asa b'hana?